Imagine that you are 14 years old. Your hands are still small, barely strong enough to hold a quill or a spoon, yet today strangers will examine your most private parts. The cold stone walls of the castle press against you, the February chill creeping into your bones. But it is not the cold that makes your knees tremble, it is fear. Fear of humiliation, fear of death, fear of your life being dictated by hands that do not care for you but for inheritance, purity, and power. You are Blanche of Navarre, future queen. In this room, your entire worth will be measured not by your intelligence, courage, or heart, but by the state of a small piece of flesh, a fragile seal that medieval men called proof of virginity. Imagine being told that one word, one misjudgment, one drop of blood could destroy your reputation, ruin your life, and endanger entire kingdoms. Imagine 13 years of stolen childhood, and now, survival depends on enduring the ultimate trial. Today, being 14 might mean classrooms, laughter, and friendships. In 1453 AD, it meant fear, exposure, and becoming property of empires. From birth, royal girls were never meant to live for themselves. They were pawns of dynasties, their bodies reserved for political alliances. Childhood was an illusion. Lessons in embroidery, religion, or music were not for enrichment. They were tools to train obedience and resilience in the face of lifelong scrutiny. Blanche of Navarre, Catherine of Aragon, Joan of Arc, these names echo not merely for triumphs, but for suffering imposed upon their bodies. Before the crown could touch their heads, their worth had already been weighed, measured, and exposed. Even at home, whispers followed them. Courtiers speculated, mothers feared, fathers knew one misstep could ruin alliances or provoke wars. Every smile, gesture, every inch of skin became a political statement. In medieval Europe, virginity was more than personal, it was a guarantee. The assurance that the next heir was truly the king's child. The hymen, a fragile membrane, vulnerable to riding, exercise, or even falling, became a symbol of national security. Men obsessed over it, theologians debated it, women were reduced to walking, breathing evidence of political stability. Catherine of Aragon's virginity, tested decades later by theologians, shows the terrifying persistence of this obsession. Joan of Arc's purity was scrutinized to verify divine favor. One misstep, one accident of anatomy, could destroy reputations, marriages, or dynasties. The body was not a sanctuary, it was a battlefield. The examinations were unrelenting, imaginative, in their cruelty. Women endured methods designed to humiliate, confuse, and degrade. The sieve test, virgins were handed a sieve filled with water. If water leaked, their virtue was questioned. Imagine balancing a sieve in trembling hands in front of nobles and midwives, knowing a drip could ruin you. Urine tests. Physicians claimed virgin urine had unique properties, sparkling, clear, even hissing as it left the body. Women urinated under observation, while men claimed science as justification. Fumigation tests. Cloth-covered women were exposed to smoke from hot coals. Reaction, or lack thereof, determined virtue. They were literally smoked like meat while strangers watched. Magnet and occult tests. Some believed virgins reacted differently to magnetic objects or frightening visions. All this terror had one purpose: control. To ensure no woman could act without male oversight. And yet, women resisted whenever they could. The cost of survival extended beyond humiliation, it was physical. At 14, bodies are still developing. Pelvises are narrow, muscles weak, blood supply limited. Childbirth could tear, crush, or kill. Fistulas left survivors incontinent, bleeding could be fatal, and many women never bore another child. According to the World Health Organization, 2019, complications from pregnancy and childbirth remain the leading cause of death for girls aged 15 to 19 worldwide. At 13 or 14, the risks rise exponentially. Children born to child mothers were often premature, low weight, fragile. Then as now, bodies were unready, fragile, and at risk. At 14, her life became the kingdom's guarantee. Despite the cruelty, women found ways to resist. blood from leeches or animals substituted for menstrual stains. Egg mixtures were applied to simulate intact hymens. Timing of menstruation or hiring of substitutes helped some survive tests. These acts were not rebellion, they were survival. Women learned anatomy, chemistry, timing, and deception to navigate a world demanding perfection from their bodies and punishing failure with humiliation or death. Every trick, every preparation, was silent defiance. Centuries later, the obsession with virginity did not vanish. Wedding night blood inspections evolved into ceremonies across cultures. Armenia's red apple, Georgia's blood rituals, and certain parts of Asia and Africa today trace directly back to these medieval practices. The laws and customs of the past created enduring patterns. In some countries, doctors still legally perform virginity tests. The belief that a woman's worth can be measured through examination persists, a chilling echo of medieval oppression. Blanche of Navarre, Catherine of Aragon, Joan of Arc, each endured the unimaginable. Their courage, intelligence, and endurance illuminate the horrifying lengths society would go to control women's bodies. They survived, resisted, and left behind lessons for generations yet to come. The examination rooms have long crumbled. Kings, priests, and physicians have vanished into history. Yet their stories remain, a mirror reflecting the cruelty of power and the resilience of those it sought to break. Picture their lives: the cold stone chambers, the endless scrutiny, the invasive hands. Imagine being told that your worth, your honor, your very existence depends entirely on strangers' judgment of your body. It is a terror hard to imagine, but they lived it. And in surviving, they taught us something profound: power can attempt to crush dignity, but it cannot extinguish the human spirit. Imagine that world today. Now imagine knowing that something similar still occurs. Child brides, forced examinations, and control over women's bodies. History repeats quietly, tragically, in modern forms. These are not stories buried in the past. They are echoes we must confront, reminders that vigilance and empathy are necessary. Blanche's story is not just history. It is a warning, a mirror, and a call to action. It teaches us that oppression thrives when silence persists, and courage can ignite resistance even in the darkest corners. Every act of survival, every subtle defiance, is a statement against cruelty. A body controlled, a soul resisted. Even in the darkest chambers, under the coldest stones, survival was, and always will be, an act of defiance. Their endurance calls us to remember, to resist, and to protect those whose voices are still unheard. To witness history is to carry its lessons forward, and to ignore them is to invite their repetition. The most profound lesson these women leave us is this: humanity cannot thrive where power silences dignity. Their bodies were tested, their spirits pressed, and yet they continued. They remind us that truth, courage, and resistance echo across time, demanding acknowledgement and action. History whispers, but does not forgive.